Good morning. How are you, Miss
Good
Terri?
morning. Hey, how are you? Oh my
We are
gosh,
back
it's
at
another
it
day.
again.
We are. We did it.
And we
We
took a
haven't
little bit
did
of a
it yet.
break.
But
That's been kind of
we
nice.
did.
Got some
We did.
downtime. For the
Yep.
listeners, we went and had a ball in Louisiana.
We did. It was so much fun. Haunted houses and escape rooms. Yeah, I'm not very good at that. I like
Oh
all
my
the
God.
scenery.
While we were not the most intuitive with it, I was telling all of my friends, I used to play video games when I was younger, and I always liked the puzzle
Mm-hmm.
video games because the shooters would
Yep.
give me anxiety. I felt so much like I was in the middle of one of those video games that I grew up playing because of how beautifully well done all the
They
sets
were
were.
amazing.
Oh my gosh. And then the haunted
Absolutely.
house was incredible.
Yes, if you ever get a chance to go to 13th Gate in Baton Rouge, it is certainly worth the
Oh,
trip. It's amazing. The escape rooms are amazing. There is an Oxbow a brewery, or is not a
yeah,
brewery,
a
a
distillery.
distillery. They make their own rum right next door. Good people,
Oh, that was
great
so
people.
fun.
So much fun. Just a really good time. And so, we had our fun, and now we're having more
Yeah.
fun, just in a different way.
It was kind of fun too because going back in for the escape room, if you're a try hard like I am, to a detriment sometimes, I guess, having a little rum buzz going back in made it a little bit more fun because I was
A
able to
little more fun.
relax and not be like, oh my God, it has to be done now. So,
Well, it was amazing because, for me, I thought originally we were going to have clues. I was like, all right, let's get the clues in our hands. Let's go that
nope.
way with the clues. You walk in and you're like, okay, where is it going to be written down? And you realize you have to find everything. You don't know what you're looking for. And so I'm so ADHD, and I'm in there looking at all the pretty decorations, So for me, I was like, leave me alone. I don't care where we are. I'm having fun just staring at stuff.
Well, and
So
it
it was
was
great.
so magical, the themes that we picked, the Egyptian one.
Yes.
There's a very like magical, surreal thing to
Mm-hmm.
that. And then the one
Yes.
with the mermaid and the lost ship. I mean, you just feel like
Yes.
you're like, and then when you step out of that building, like how'd they fit all of that in that building? The building looks like nothing.
I know, it's
It's so
amazing. And
cool.
it is, and I hate to admit it out loud to the audience, but one of my favorites was the asylum because I
Mm-hmm.
just felt like I was right back home. It was like, here I am, crazy world. Yep, meet me as an adult. Here we go.
Well,
Like, oh, cool bedpans. Look at the lockers, just like mine.
that was definitely the one well, it was the first one, right? No, it was the second one. I can't remember. It was the second
It
one.
was the second one. It was.
But it was so eerie, and I'm a baby. And I get so determined, and so I dance between like over aggression and just petrified fear. And
I
so
love it.
I
Yep.
left the asylum one with bruises everywhere because I just
Oh no.
no, but not in a bad way, but just because I'm trying to get to the locker, and I just I don't bring my other arm in the room because I'm so
I'm
determined.
sorry.
I just let nobody. It's so me, and I remember just thinking, "Oh my gosh, this is why I can never make it in like high stress environments." But it was the best
You
time.
did great.
Thank you.
It was amazing. And for all the new viewers, I did grow up in an asylum. Literally, no, I'm not that crazy. At least not on the surface, anyway. Right?
Right. No.
No, that was just my upbringing. But it was pretty cool.
Well, I mean,
It
jokes
really was.
aside, I swear to you, I mean, that room in the haunted house, when we got to the part that looked like a farmhouse, legit straight up, I thought, ugh. And you're not a delicate person, so I wasn't worried about you at all. But I mean, if you were a delicate person at all, I could just that should have just felt like a flashback, nothing but.
Well, and in some ways it does. You're right, absolutely. But I've moved so far away from that I
Yeah.
can look at it and not feel the emotions. I'm looking at it from a very different angle now. I look at
Yeah.
things like, wow, look at that, how crafty, how
Yeah.
amazingly clever. I mean, I have to be careful not to go and start touching their, like their their suit or whatever they're wearing and go, wow, look at that. How did you make that? How long did it take you to put your makeup on? Because I
Yeah.
just love the effects of it. I've gotten more of that than I
Mm-hmm.
am of the fear factor.
Yeah. Oh, well, I really took that into account when you said that on the front end because I tried to focus on that. Plus the boys and Miranda were up front and so they were triggering
Yep.
a lot of the worst scares.
Yes.
So I
Yes.
am grateful that you had said that because I was able to actually focus on that maybe instead of getting too caught up in the jump scares or if I was about to be jump scared because at least I
Exactly.
could admire and it truly was admirable. Oh my gosh, every part of
Yes.
it was. And
Oh, it was
then
amazing.
there was even a part that I didn't even get to comment on that much because I was just trying to get through it. But there was
Hmm.
a video game that's very popular, The Last of Us, that then got turned into a TV show. And there was an homage to that in one of the sections.
Hmm.
But it was so scary that it didn't stop to like take. I wish there were certain parts where, looking back, I wish I'd have been able to slow down a little bit. But
I
in
know
that
that.
moment,
I agree.
the last thing I wanted to do was slow down.
I get it. I totally get it. It's such an incredible experience to be able to see just the different talents. Putting
Hmm.
aside all of the scare factors, just the talents involved in the creativity and a little bit of the diabolicalness of the brain to see some
Hmm.
of those settings and how they've designed them. But it was amazing. I enjoyed
Mm,
every bit of it.
that was.
So that was a necessary trip.
And thank you
And
for it. Oh my
that's
gosh.
you're very welcome. I mean, that was real important to all of us to get together and make it happen. And I'll tell you, it was a good, segue into the rest of my week after. I'm having a shower redone in the bathroom, and the only problem is that it's the master bedroom where I am, my husband and I are, of the bathroom's right there. So when they
Mhm.
redo the bathroom, the bedroom, as you can imagine, it's like 3 inches of silica dust, which is bad for you,
Mhm.
and plasterboard, and it's just been horrendous because I've been pretty much camping out in my office at
Oh.
home. I call it my other bedroom.
Yeah, I was gonna say the new hangout.
My new hangout. So see, it's amazing. I could do podcasts and then I could take a snooze, shower, and you
Yeah.
name it. I got it going
Clients
on,
right after.
just right after, right here, and I've had to pin down the cats because I can't let them run out of the back door or anything with the maintenance here. And so we've been kind of hunkering in for a week now into the
Mm.
office. It's happy days, good times.
Hopefully almost over. Almost over.
Yes, 2 more days. I'm hoping
Whew.
that I can actually shower in my new shower that happens to be just a wee bit smaller than the last one. I guess they didn't know that I gained weight. I
Oh,
don't
stop.
know, which
Well, we
that's
definitely
okay.
ate enough on the oh my god, the food was so good.
It's amazing. If you've ever been to New Orleans, check out Arnaud's on your next trip.
Mm,
Or if you have, you know what I mean. It's just amazing. The service is impeccable, and the food is quite
yes.
amazing. Just
Oh my
amazing.
god.
And Raju was really good too. That was the Cajun food
Oh, that
on the
night after
Saturday
the
night.
yes, that was fantastic. Oh, that was with the
So
pasta. Oh my gosh, that was
yes, that's
fantastic.
right. The pasta that you ate for the next 36 hours.
Yes. Oh
You
yeah, I
liked
did.
it.
I really did. I really did. I felt so bad that night. I just could not get an appetite, and then I wound up
Right.
eating that
Yeah.
so. It was so
It
good
was
in the morning.
enjoyable.
That was the best.
So we had a lot of fun. So
Yes, we
see,
did.
I know the listeners are learning quite a bit about the fun things that are around the Halloween season. So that's been
Yeah.
exciting. I wonder what that means. Whatever shall we talk about?
Well, in the vein of Halloween right around the corner,
Yes.
obviously there's a lot of interesting thoughts. Like the internet's wild always, and it's always coming up with new things, and there's always
Yes.
so I always quiz you about it because I'm like, people are saying wild stuff. What's this about? And
I love it.
here we are with Halloween. People talk about Beltane. They talk about the veil being thinner, whatever that really means. Um, and we have discussed that before a little bit about what does it really mean if the veil's thin, especially when we were podcasting around the eclipse. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do remember that. That was amazing. I love that.
And then we've also talked a little bit about the nature of spirit being left behind. Some people would call that a haunting.
Hmm.
So I feel like we could get into some of that today.
I think that sounds great. I love the way you started it out by going into the vein. Just in the
Yes.
vein of things. Let's get our groove on. Let's get our Halloween woo on. As we continue forward. No, don't worry. Nothing's going in your veins except your blood. Don't worry.
Right.
Be safe. Stay away from drugs.
Drugs are bad. Okay. No.
Drugs are bad. Okay, so let's get into the Halloween flow.
Awesome.
Wow.
Let's get a concise understanding of what's your definition of a haunting?
That's a really good question because I don't use that word often
Mm-hmm.
because it does have a lot of different connotations to different people. When I
Mm-hmm.
see a haunting, I don't see it as being something that's just grandma, grandpa, running around your house and everything. A haunting to me feels like there is a motivation behind it that is less than good. Okay, so when I
Around the
see
activity.
hauntings around the activity,
Yeah.
when I can categorize something as a haunting, I need to dig further and see what level of bad is the haunting.
Yes.
Is this just a spirit that's ticked off because they can't seem to find the way home, through crossing, or their loved ones don't know that they're gone, or they can't be seen? What is the level of haunting?
Mm-hmm.
We see some pretty bad energies that could be part of that terminology, that term as well. And there's some pretty ugly stuff, ugly things out there that
Mm-hmm.
sometimes people don't recognize as being possible, or
Well, actors in the story.
yes, exactly. So more than anything, a haunting is not usually a good thing. Okay.
Right. Now, to and I'm gonna getting through these definitions so that we can work forward in the discussion
Sure. You
with
bet.
because like you said, everyone's kind of got a different take on it, whatever.
Yes.
You're referencing, so when we say that something is a living spirit, we
Hmm?
mean that they are soul bearing. They're not
Yes.
of this earth. Their
Right.
soul has descended to this earth and then will ascend out of it upon death. It is a living soul
Hmm.
bearing spirit. There are,
Absolutely.
and then and that has activity in the astral upon death.
Right.
There are also more plain, earth plane native energies that
Hmm.
are not going to be ascending out at any point and are very stationary.
Exactly.
And some of
That's
them have
right.
had a lot of time to be
Hmm.
stationary. And so
Yes.
some people would call that, darker spirits. Some would say
Hmm.
demons. Some would say, agents of darkness, whatever you want to call them. But
Right.
the main thing I think that would be defining about them would simply be that they are not what we would consider a living spirit. They are an earth spirit.
Right.
Would that be accurate?
Yes.
And then we have the angelic spirits, which would sort of be kind of not in the same way of soul bearing like we are, but
Mm-mm.
basically arguably of the order of things, not necessarily of the
Yes.
earth.
Precisely. Very well
Perfect.
stated.
Thank you. I don't know where that
See,
came from.
that's
But
see, that's the difference between PhD and ADD.
yeah. Yes.
She,
So
I
oh,
love that you speak so precise about it, because
thank
it
you.
really, the definitions are what people get really caught on,
Yeah.
and they lose their way thinking, well,
Yes.
it's this, or is it that, or no, it's got to be this, and they get caught up in it. So that was very concise. I love that. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, and so when we think about hauntings, we always have to recognize that they are both able to play in the astral playground, i.e., when a cabinet moves, right? They have
Yes.
that same dominion technically. So a soul
Right.
bearing spirit who's passed, or maybe who has been stuck, but at
Hmm.
one point they were living. They could have a malignancy about them because they've gotten chaotic and they've gone into kind of a little bit of a madness, or they're really angry and they're consciously angry about something in the
Hmm.
house or something they feel is wrong. And then you also have those energies that are of the earth that really can't go anywhere,
Yes.
that sort
Right.
of have work to do with us, that has more of like, can we get some of your energy, please? Can we get some control over you, please? But
Exactly.
different driver, but they can all move the cabinet, right?
Yes,
And
they
they
can all
can
move the
all quote
cabinet. Is
unquote
correct.
haunt.
Yes. That's exactly right. When I see, again, going back to what we mentioned earlier about, the loved ones, when I see the loved ones moving, again, the cabinet, we'll use that as the example again. I still don't feel like there is a haunting
Yes.
present as much as I feel like there's activity. So at
Okay.
that point, I'm still trying to discern where we're at, what's going on here. With it, we see the activity, we know it exists. So what direction do we go?
Mm-hmm.
If it's grandma and grandpa, oftentimes when you have a client, say for instance, who is wanting some answers, they're hearing
Mm-hmm.
it, they're sensing it, it's kind of making them upset, they're a little uncomfortable at home, and they want to get our take on it. If I was and oftentimes this happens, I'll say, okay, well, I do feel that your grandmother and grandfather are here, say for instance. Well, most times I get the response of, well, I don't want them to go. Okay. Well, if they're the ones that are opening the cabinet doors, then we've got to tell them that that's disturbing to you, or
Mm-hmm.
you've got to come to a realization that you're okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
There has to be some resolution somehow. Uh, but most times they don't want them cleared, which I
Mm-hmm.
get. I totally understand. One of the hardest things, too, Sophia, to put together is whether the energy is good enough to stay, or whether the energy is mimicking relative, and trying to take it off its scent, off its trail.
Mm-hmm.
So we
Oh,
do have to
wait.
be mindful of that.
So whenever we talk about also, because this just popped in my head, and maybe it's important, maybe it's not. I don't have an answer. I'm very curious what you have to say about this. So we also recognize that energy can be crossed over, right? Be no longer sentiently present, but there is an
Right.
echo of their behavior.
Yes,
And so that's when some people see like a battlefield that keeps repeating,
absolutely.
because
Right.
those
A
souls are
repetitive
not
loop.
all. Yeah.
Right.
Um and that could that also do you ever see that where, for instance, maybe like a grandmother or they would pace a lot? Because my gut says, well, okay, so, and then you say that you get called in and you're like, all right, we hear footsteps, da da da, and you've come to find at one point there was an active energy, but now it's more of a memory? Or is that really, if you're hearing footsteps, that's they're still there, that energy's still present?
Well, yes and no. Sometimes footsteps are, again, the residual energy. Residual energy is repetitive energy that continues on and on and on. It's something that just plays out at a certain time or a certain place in the home or the business, wherever you're working. And that repetitiveness is considered residual. What we find is that some lower vibrational energy will also mimic residual, because most
Mm,
people don't feel a need to try to get rid of the residual. Okay. Um, and also, an example, this is something I want to put in the mix too, where it does require some additional work. When you see something, you feel something, and you're trying to get some thoughts about it. An example being, if grandma's chair is now rocking upstairs on its own, don't automatically assume that grandma's come to visit and she's rocking in the chair upstairs in the attic.
right.
Because I don't really feel your grandmother is going to want to sit up in the attic and do that.
Mm-mm.
Okay?
She's gonna be in the kitchen with you.
She's going to be in the kitchen. And that the grandmother's chair that's rocking doesn't mean grandma's come to visit. And that's
Right.
where I have to try to educate people, because they see it being a certain item or a certain thing, and they immediately go, and I'm sure it's wishful thinking too, up to the owner. Oh, that's my dad's, that's my dad's little box that he used to keep on his desk. Now that it keeps getting flung on the floor, dad's trying to get my attention. Well, okay, that's a reasonable thought. Makes sense, but we have to rule all other things. We have to
Mm-hmm.
rule everything out as best as we can, so that we can be sure to say, I do feel that's your father.
Mm-hmm.
We do EVP, get some evidence,
Mm-hmm.
some voice phenomena. We get something to give us a little bit more feedback as to what it is that's really happening.
Mm-hmm.
And so we realize that hauntings really can take on a whole different meaning from place to place.
Mm-hmm.
I will tell you, we've recently, and I know at some point, Night Eye will be with us on,
Yes.
or certainly with Sophia. But Night Eye Paranormal and I did an investigation this week And it was we spent several hours working in an environment where there was a lot of moving parts. We had a person who had committed suicide in the house, or on the outside of the house in the backyard. We also had a lot of energy that was racing through the house. And so we had to come up with a lot of different, things, because there had been a lot of death in the family. So we had to go more first, okay, rule out, are these all the family members that have come back? They're not really haunting, they're hanging out. Or is this because there has been so much tragedy and trauma that there's lower vibrational energy that's moving in because they saw an opportunity? So we do have to take a good, strong look at that and sort it out, because it would be irresponsible of us, especially as paranormal investigators, to go in and just automatically assume, oh, don't worry, that's just your loved ones. Let it be. They just want to be friendly.
With that, and just tell me if there are topics that we can't get into with that investigation, because
Sure.
we talked about it over dinner in Louisiana, kind of some of the aspects that could be there. I'm
Right.
curious, were you able to deduce that there had been activity prior to the death that had been non-native to the person who wound up taking their life? Was it under influence or no?
Well, it's interesting, and I'm going to tell you so that you'll know. The one that we spoke of at that time over dinner actually is a different investigation.
Oh no, wild.
It's a
Okay.
different one. I do get a lot of investigations centered around suicides,
Yeah. Now, is that
unfortunately,
always typically true? That suicidality has a tendency to draw that?
I'm not going. I'm not going to say yes, and the
Okay.
reason why, oftentimes, there's some, again, yes, there's a lot of trauma. Oftentimes, it's we can conjure up through negative thought forms
Mm-hmm.
and create things that we now see as bumping in the night.
Mm.
But I don't want to say always, because I don't want to give anyone the notion that it has to happen
Correct.
when
Right.
there's a
No, of
suicide,
course. Yeah.
because it really doesn't. I mean, I don't. Otherwise, I would never be able to sleep, because my phone wouldn't be ringing off, off the hook. So more than anything, we do see that there is a potential for it to ramp up during those type of issues and trauma. Okay, in this particular instance, it was energy coming in that took advantage of the family because they were in mourning.
I see. Oh, wow. And it was a non, I mean, I'm presuming now at this point that it was of the earth plane.
Exactly.
Dang. You guys keep getting those. That's so wild. And so how
And
did it, oh, go ahead.
well, and success stories uh, are not always the outcome. A lot of moving parts to this, and I don't want to get into too many of them, just in case I don't. Obviously, I want to keep the confidence
Mm-hmm.
of my clients, but I also will say that some good came of it.
Good.
Some really good positive came from those that were living spirits that needed to understand that it was time to take on a different role.
Crossover.
And those, yes,
Yeah.
and those that were not part of that process recognized that they were discovered,
And it was time to go.
and it was time to go. Were we as successful as we have been in other investigations with it? No, for other reasons that were beyond our control.
Well, and we've discussed this before on the episode. I think it was like early, kind of on 5 or 6 or something. So it's titled with the Ouija boards.
Yeah.
Is in the title, and we kind of talk about the weird human aspect of hauntings. Sometimes can have a tendency to be invited / brought on / sustained, however you want to say it, the variants out there, by the host of the home. And that can be for a multitude of reasons. And some of it's fascination. Let's be real. Like, it is fascinating. It's very strange. It's very weird. And if you have not a lot going on that you're excited about, or not a lot going on that it's very easy to go, I'm going to hyperfixate on this because this is exhilarating and interesting and scary kind of. And gosh, it's just so novel. So then they're saying, oh, I need my place cleared. You say, well, I will, but get rid of this Ouija board you keep talking to the spirits with. I'm like, well, no, I just want the spirit gone, but I still want to play. And you're like, well, this isn't going to work that way. Come on now. We got to
Doesn't
be,
work that way.
and so,
And I will tell you, if you have a Ouija board, you better not tell me you've got one,
mm-mm,
or you better get it out of the house, because I'm not going to clear your house if you have one.
mm-mm,
There's no reason to.
no.
There absolutely is no reason to, because what I'm doing is subjecting myself to something that already has an in and out.
Yes.
And so it's just going to play, basically, it's going to play, chase me around, and I'm going to have to chase it back. And there's no, I mean, it's not worth it. It's simply not
No.
worth it.
And
And it's
I'm
not
glad
worth
that
it
we're
for
saying that
me.
again.
Yes, as an investigator, you're wasting my time. Yes, I get paid for it. But the bottom line is, if I can't help you, I'd like to go help someone else.
Yeah, and there are
And so
plenty.
there are plenty. There are plenty. I've got a wonderful, I'm waiting, hopefully hear something today with a very, very large business that is asking for clearing. And so I'm happy to oblige. Again, I can't spend my whole day, obviously, out and about going to locations, because I have an in-house practice,
Yeah.
so I can't really do that. But I will tell you a few things so that people understand, as we're talking about Halloween. We do see that, as you'll mention, I'm sure, about the veil. We see changes around this time of year. Now, we recognize that some of them may be driven by, again, the curiosity that you've mentioned, the intrigue. The time of year is always the spooky ooky, so people want to embellish it and get feedback. Heck, I mean, we just left haunted houses, for fun. So obviously, there's something to be said about the energy of around Halloween. But I'm going to say something for the listeners. If you want to get rid of energy, there's one way that you can be very instrumental. There's many ways, but the first way, do your best to be tidy. Do your best to clean up as best as you can around you. When you have and I know there are people out there that are like, no, I don't like that. I like to have a mess. I like to have disorganization. I like to have, 6 weeks of dishes still in the sink. And I'm not putting you down. I don't have any judgment. I don't really care if that's your choice. But I also want to say, when you have stagnant energy, which is, again, if you don't operate in your home on a plan of action, of actually kind of, what's the word for it, being active in the home. You're not doing laundry, you're not doing dishes, you're not cooking, you're not bringing in positive energy at all. Then you must realize that you're going to have things that are just going to pop up and crop up. So do your best to own each room of your home. Go in there, make a bit of conversation, something even as simple as, I know I haven't washed my kitchen floor in 6 years, but this is my kitchen floor and I need you out of my kitchen.
Yes.
Okay. So you can do your part. When I say tidy up, that means something different to everybody. When we do clearings, right, we are looking for a path. We're looking for a way to get around. We're looking for a way to really hone in on what we see. And if the shadows are from 8 feet of dirty laundry, then we're probably not going to be as helpful to you as we really could. So the first round of action is tidy up, and then we're able to help you better.
And to go further into sort of the way that functions, why that is true, when we talk about you're not a big fan of thrifting jewelry, thrifting in general, it's not your favorite thing, or I'm not antiquing.
No, I don't do that.
And we talk about it from the perspective of the reason there would be an aversion to it is simply that objects and items can still bear energy, especially of something that was living or something that is, we are strong, we are foundationally larger than the physical plane. So when we hold something, it takes from us, right?
Yes.
And so when there is an absence of us interacting with these physical planes, then that leaves them now pretty open to be influenced by weaker energies, but that are now, because they're definitely weaker than we are, but they are more active. They've chosen to be in that dirty room. We haven't. Over time, that's their room, baby. Like, I don't know what, you've got to go back in there. So when you clean it, it's not like, oh, it's the cleanliness that needs to be present for it to be safe. It's the fact that you have touched it and addressed it and claimed it. And in the Last of Us, it's a post-apocalyptic show, And there's a little compound, and these two guys, they fall in love, and one of them's a little bit stingy with resources and the other isn't. And he says, I want to paint the wine store, and I want to paint this street. There's no one there, it's just them two. And the guy says, why? This is so dumb. And he says, just let me love it the way I want to. Let me love
Yes.
this street the way I want to. There's nobody here. There's no one who's going to see it. But we go to the wine store a lot. We go to
Yes.
the dressing, like the nice clothes store, and we see the street every day. That's
Yes.
what we're talking about. So, even if you don't have the time or the energy to clean a room,
Right.
would it really hurt to go in there and spray some Febreze and light a candle that you like and just say, I will be with you shortly, I promise?
Absolutely. We know just as well as our listeners how busy life gets. I mean, we're
Yeah.
busy 24/7 most of the time, and things pile up and things don't get done. But when you choose to, or sometimes you don't even realize you're choosing to stay out of a room or to not be involved in a room, then the room also has an opportunity to take on a different life. And there are energies that are just simply looking for a nice quiet place to reside.
Yeah.
And now you're poking around, if you go in there, every now and again, and they're like, hey, this is my place. What you doing in my space? So now it's a battle of will. It's kind of, what's the term when someone, there's a term for it. Squatters, thank you.
Yeah.
Think of it as energetic squatters. If you don't claim it, something else will. Period. It's just the nature of energy, just of anything. I mean, bugs are the same way. A nice quiet room, one bug's like, cool, this is my new pad. I'm going to stay here and raise a family.
Well, you always say this, actually, and it's a great reminder to me, but you always say energy's everywhere.
It is.
It just, that's a reality of it. And just because we can't see it, just because the majority of the world cannot see it, it does not even closely mean that it doesn't have sway. It's just, that would be a
That's
ridiculous.
exactly right.
So, and that's kind of scary on some level, but it's also, what are we going to do? That is a reality.
Exactly. It is a reality. Claim your space. And as Sophia was saying, it doesn't matter if you can't go in there and make everything, white glove clean. It doesn't matter. We're not looking for that. We're just making sure that you've spent enough time in that environment, that you're not creating a pocket of peace for some critter to kind of, take over. And it does happen, folks. I know it sounds strange, but if nothing else, look at it from a negative thought form.
Mm-hmm.
I know that we can't always be in good moods. And I'll tell you, I'm just sign me up just with y'all, because I've been in off and on bad mood over the last month. And so that's my car. It's a long story. And so I recognize that I have to keep myself in check, because there are times that the mood gets so intense that I could conjure up negative thought forms and bring them to me.
Mm-hmm.
And wouldn't that be fun? So kind of keep yourself in check. Know what's going on. Don't bring something into your environment. You can be mad and glad and happy and sad and all the human emotions we have a right to, but also recognize there's consequences to some of these moods.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I like to throw in, Sophia, as well, it's just like when you're, say for instance, you're sick, you're home, you've got the flu. No, we don't want any of you all to do that. Let's not get too close to that thought. But if we were home and we were in bed for 5 days, most of us would know that it would be a good idea to change the sheets later, right?
Right.
Right? Well, just because you would think, through a hygienic purpose, you've been sick, your viruses are all over the place, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, think of it from the state of trauma. If you've got trauma, and even in that situation of the flu, you've got to also clear the space afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
Because you've been in a vulnerable situation. So not only are you picking up and getting rid of the viruses, but you're picking up and getting rid of any energy that could possibly have found its way to you, because you were basically distracted.
Mm-hmm.
So
And
when
unwell.
we have trauma, yes, unwell, exactly. The body is unwell, so things go sideways sometimes. So we have to be mindful when we're sick. Clear out the physicalness of things, but also remember you're not just a physical being, you're a spiritual being. And if you've been down and out sick, you've probably got some negative thought forms or something that may have creeped in to check on you. You see?
I would love to go back to that comment you made about near Halloween, how to kind of referencing the veil, you said things start to look a little different. What do you mean
Yes.
by that?
Well, for a few different reasons. I said that we recognize that there are many of us, and I'm included. I did a haunted Halloween house at home. We were known as the house in Richardson, Texas, the haunted house of Richardson, because we would embellish and put decorations, and we had a lot of really cool things that we did in order to stimulate interest in Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
So for many of us, we already are acclimated to the spooky ooky at that time. We like to be scared. That's why we go to haunted houses for fun and pay a lot of money to do so. I mean, we do that because it's worth it, right? And so we recognize that because we are engaged in that mindset, we're already on that page, that we do also have a responsibility that we've got the door wide open. And so if the door's wide open, we need to be mindful of what's kind of scooting around us to get in. Even though I'm a firm believer in fun and I love all the spooky ooky stuff, it doesn't bother me. I mean, I can't get enough of it sometimes. I think it's pretty cool. But when I know that I'm around it, I'm still clearing ground. Because really, what's really cool in someone's yard is not going to be cool to me at 3 a.m. in my nightmare. Do you see? So I still want to keep this energy out of my home, out of my castle. Now that doesn't mean I don't decorate. Now that's where I need to, because I have people that are like, we don't decorate because we don't want that to be in our home. A decoration is a decoration. Is it possible for something to reside in it? Sure. That goes with all the people that go antique shopping as well. But the reality is, you are also a very strong energy. Even in human form, you're very strong energy. So you have a responsibility. No matter what you do, have fun, enjoy, go live it up. But have a responsibility that you might have to clear your house a little bit more in October than you would typically do maybe in January.
And we've always said this multiple times here too. Hauntings are incredibly rare.
Yes.
So, everyone, the other night I woke up, I have these touch lamps in my room. And I don't remember what could have turned on the one. It's far away from my bed. And I have zero interest at 3 a.m. in the morning trying to sort out if energy turned that on or if my cats did.
Right.
Because it doesn't matter. Because it like if energy's everywhere and it was with me at 3 a.m., I'm just gonna say, hey, like not right now, not ever. This is my house. I pay rent. Let's go. And I think that's sort of, there are some people I think who would just really, really hyperfixate, because I'm sure there's a lot of reasons why. But then you kind of have a tendency to create gravity there too. It's like, so be mindful of that as well when it comes to, if you sense activity. Maybe sometimes it's not always the most important to divine exactly what is going on. And sometimes it's just, it's kind of like someone who cuts you off. Do you want to follow them home and figure out why they cut you off and what that was about?
Exactly.
Or do you want to just say, you need to get off the road and I need to get away from you? Period.
Precisely. That's exactly right. The more you entertain it by reacting to it, the more apt it is to continue to get your attention. Now, I mean, I recognize if it's grandma and you're like, hey, grandma, it's good to see you. How are you doing? That's understandable. But really, why is grandma, knocking things over at 3 a.m.? Why would grandma feel like that would make sense? So we have to keep it in perspective. We can't go shadow boxing all the spirits. Okay. We have to be realistic about, what we've got. But if you do look at it, that we are, energetic beings, we are spiritual beings, we are here existing amongst many other things. And if you keep that in perspective, you do your best to keep your house clear, but you recognize it's not that simple. Energy is energy, and it comes and goes however it sees fit. It's what you do with it that creates either a peaceful, harmonious place, or you wreak havoc with it. And I want you to know, folks, there's things that go bump in the night that scare me. I want you to know that. I seem like I've been doing this a long time and nothing bothers me, but I still have what we call a startle reflex.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell you, and sometimes when I feel someone is standing over me, and in the middle of the night, I'm going to wake up with that feeling, that startled feeling of get out of my room and be fearful. So, I mean, again, we're not going to ever really fully lose that because we're human.
Yeah,
But
I
we
mean, how
have a
could you?
responsibility. Exactly. Exactly. So going back to, circling the wagons of Halloween, we recognize that, yes, Halloween is when we're all thinking kind of similar things, most of us, not all of us, about, pumpkins and witches and ghosties and all the cool stuff. And sometimes we get really down deep into it. We've got gargoyles and ghouls and demons, all sorts of really cool decorations. And, have at it. And then there's always going to be someone who's going to have a very, very strong opinion about how that should be not done.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll leave it to the haters to hate that. I don't care.
Right. And I want to touch on this too, because the season also every year correlates with a lot of the moon activities, right? These harvest moons, these
Yes.
very unique energetic instances, I guess.
Yep.
And I this is my opinion, obviously. It's very strong. I'm probably not going to change it. But and I know not everyone agrees, but I'm not the one who is ever going to be promotive of rituals of any kind that are sort of attempting to tether or channel some of these energies, because here's the reality of why I don't. And it's not because I don't think that there is something there, an advantage that would maybe be there, because that is energy, and it's a lot of energy. And it's
Yes, it
only
is.
there for a certain period of time. I get why
That's
people
right.
would. But if you're doing it as like, Sarah Smith at home, who is just trying to be a white witch and do the right thing and bless her family and whatever it could be that's, in the light theoretically. But while you're trying to do that using the same energy, connecting to the same energy, connecting to the same intention to harness it, well, you got all the other people in the world who are also doing it in the most nefarious fashion too.
Oh, absolutely.
And if energy is a highway, which it is,
Yes, it is.
you are
Well stated.
joining a highway as this theoretical good driver, good person, and you are landlocked on that energetic highway of the people who are doing ritualistic sacrifice, like abusive, traumatic things that are trying to channel the same energy just for more
Yep.
nefarious purposes, because there is power there. So
There's power there.
I think that even the lightest, magic practitioner, whatever they think that means, whatever they believe that means, and my opinion about all of that, but
Yep.
I would caution anybody who is prone to those activities to recognize that those are actually, I would say, hotspots of something going awry.
Yes.
Significantly more than getting that like half bump of extra energy because the moon was extra bright that night. You're like, no, you're connecting with a lot of people connecting to not great things. Just be very careful with that, man. Like,
You do
you
have
don't
to
know
be
what
very
you don't
careful with
know.
that. Yes, I've heard that phrase a time or two.
And can you afford that?
I love it.
Like,
I love it. That's exactly right. Well, and that's true, and Sarah Witch, stick with your broom. It's a lot safer to be riding that than it is to be riding these spells and these curses and these rituals. And again, and there are going to be many people that are going to come around and say, there's nothing wrong with rituals. And I get it, and I'm not going to bash you. I'm just simply going to say to you, what are you conjuring up? Don't allow your ego to be what you start with, because I want to tell you, at some level, at some point, no matter how good you think you are, you're going to put yourself in harm's way.
mm-hmm.
Your rituals should be of the light, and if the rituals are of the darkness, you do you. I'm not going to tell you not to, but I'm going to tell you that you have to expect your results may not be what you want. Okay?
Well, and that's true with everything. If you're trying to go and get into the gym and you do it in a haphazard way, you're going to injure
Right.
yourself. It's not,
Injure
this isn't,
yourself. Yes.
these are the
Mm-hmm.
metaphysical activities with the intention of an action, I guess, on the other side of it, right? Because no one's
Mm-hmm.
really doing rituals just to have that experience. They're hoping for an outcome.
They're hoping for an outcome.
Then,
Yes.
I always, when people, I have clients who, and I don't ever go into it because it's just not, I always just say that's not my topic. I don't really know that I agree with it. I think it's more dangerous than it ever could be great. But one of the questions I asked the other day, and I don't know why, because I know nothing about this. I don't study it, but my guides are with me. This is them. And the question was, do you understand that there are domains within rituals as far as like whether fire is present, whether water is present, like there are, and that's
Mm-hmm.
important. I don't know why it's important. That's what my guy, but the question was, there is an ignorance even around processes that information is fairly lost unless you have connections
Mm-hmm.
to something that's generational and deeper. You're not
Right.
finding the truth on the internet, y'all. I promise you.
No, you're not.
You're
That's
not.
exactly right.
There's no way you are. There's so many truths to those processes, and they really are truths that are just so much more like legalese almost.
Right.
And we're not lawyers.
No, exactly. More than anything, people use good common sense. If you're out there sacrificing small animals, does that make you like tick? Is that what you want to do? Think about it. There are a lot of rituals out there that are very just sadistic. And again, we could take a whole year and go over some of those rituals, but we're not. The point is, if you're doing something and it has a potential to have a negative outcome, you may be the recipient of that negative outcome. So you might be mindful to have all your guards in place, however best, so that what you create doesn't get boomeranged right back on you.
Yeah. We are actively against fear mongering.
Yes.
But I will say in this
Yes.
topic, I always have a desire to sort of instill a healthy amount of caution because it is so necessary. Like I
Yes.
cannot describe. When you said there are things that scare you, the reason that anything could still scare you and scare me, even though we feel pretty relatively understanding, relatively strong in these regions, is because I'm 29. I've only been on this earth 29 years. If I think that I know any degree of depth of knowledge about these topics to the point to where I'd want to action them, it's just not happening. I just don't know how to make that work logically.
Well, exactly. And just like, Sophia said, she's 29, I'm 30. Leave it alone.
I love you so much.
We do have, again, even if I was 125, I still have limited experience when it comes to some of these things that go bump in the night, because I just don't really want to go and actively delve into it.
And learn it, yeah.
And learn it. There's a lot, I leave that to the other experts that do this in a different level.
Yes.
And people will say to me, okay, well, your son is a demonologist. And I'm like, yes, absolutely. More power to him. You're not going to see me do that because that's not where I work. That's not where I am. Is it wrong for him to be? No. I feel like there's so many things that we don't want to talk about that are really part of our world. There's a strong need for that energy, for that person to come in and go a little bit deeper than I'm willing to go. More than anything, we want you to understand that we want you to have a blast for Halloween. Use some good judgment. Use some good common sense, If you wouldn't do blood rituals in September, why the hell are you going to do them in October?
Yeah,
just
that's a great point.
Use good common sense. If that's your bag, and again, and if that's your deal, you do it. Because I'm not your judge and your jury. But recognize if it goes sideways, you may not like your outcome. And in the end, you were an active participant in something that probably was a little sketchy. And, sometimes you're going to have to just face those consequences.
And they never come with a name tag.
No,
You know,
no.
so you think that you've executed this great ritual and it's all great, and then you have a car accident and your boyfriend leaves you, and you don't piece together that there might be a correlation here, because it's not going
Yeah.
to show up as, hey, remember when you tried to summon a good thing? Well, I'm here instead. Let's hang out. It doesn't work like that. It's gonna slowly deteriorate your style of life and your wellness within your own life.
Oh, absolutely. Use this time of year, especially this year. And, folks, I know a lot of the listeners out there can relate to this. There's a lot of turmoil right now. There's a lot of emotions. There's a lot of vibration. There's a lot of magnetic energy. There's a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so with a lot of stuff out there, you have to even be more wise when it comes to what are you willing to go knee deep into. We've got already just a volatile time in our world. How much of that do you want to be in your own house, your own household? So good judgment while you're having a blast, really. I mean, I hope you all get candy and I hope you get lots of it. And I hope it doesn't add an ounce to your weight and it keeps your teeth nice and clean. I want you to enjoy. I want you to love. Because I'll tell you, I've got candy. Well, I did have candy. I don't have it anymore. I have to get more, which is usually what happens when I buy it in August for, you know, October. Damn kids are getting chips
You
this year
know,
because I don't like those chips. I'm just kidding.
very much candy, very much all the time.
Yes, anyway, it's all good. Enjoy the Halloween. Go watch some cool stuff. If you've never seen Ernest Scared Stupid, you don't know what you're missing. That's a really cool family, just crazy. You don't even need a family. You just need, heck, I sit there and watch it in my evening with a glass of wine and laugh and laugh and laugh. So go do something fun for yourself with your people. Enjoy the
Mm-hmm.
holiday in a healthy way. Doesn't
Absolutely.
doesn't mean you all have to dress up and go to church. It simply means really be motivated by, the fact that the day after you still have to be able to look at yourself in the mirror.
Yeah, and maybe that's not the night to go sleep in a cemetery. Maybe not.
I love cemeteries. I really do. I get a real big kick out of people because again, everyone. I'm not trying to change your view. You do you. But I mean, seriously, if you had a loved one, would you think to yourself, "Wow, I am having such a blast here, rotting away. I
Mm-mm.
think I'm going to just sit here and enjoy every last nuance of flesh coming off my body, and I'm just going to be happy as a lark."
I just love it here.
Why would we do that? So for me, the only thing that's knocking around a cemetery is the stuff you don't want.
Well, I was going to ask about that. Do you feel that there is is there a lot of activity in cemeteries natively?
I have been in plenty of cemeteries, and they really don't bother me. I've been in above ground cemeteries, the kind they have in Louisiana, and I've done work there. I've done just our regular everyday cemeteries across the U.S. I've done a lot of cemeteries, and the realism is your loved ones aren't hanging out there. Okay, they're not all singing and playing cards at midnight there, because they're probably at your house. You go see them, but they're probably already at your house waiting for you to come back.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and again, I'm not putting anyone's faith down, please understand. But if you really want to build a relationship with someone who's passed, build it in your home.
Mm-hmm.
That's where their spirit is. There's nothing expiring about that. But the cemeteries usually are notorious for having energy that is the practical jokers, the mischief makers, the travelers, the difficult energies, because they know that people come there. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, well, it's like if you show up in the at midnight, you're probably out for mischief, and
Mm-hmm.
so they're happy to oblige. They might
Well,
even come home with you and find you have a new roommate.
well, I was going to say, the funny thing about the energies that would be present there too is the the earth itself, the land, right? These are always outside, there is a
Yep.
protective element there, because
Yes.
there are
Yes.
energies that would be in that region that would not be like open to a dark negative
Right.
energy just popping up there. So there would be
Exactly.
the earth itself, the fact that these are outside is sort of that buffer to the point where it would not be allowed to stay there for long if it was truly malignant, which means
Right.
that the ones that stay are harmless. to the earth, which means they're kind of that middle management that no one's going to get rid of because they don't really matter. And
Right.
unfortunately, they're the ones that will come home and be like, well, I'm bored here. What have you got going on?
Yes.
And it's
Yes.
just like, why
And
bother?
exactly. And there are times that there are some really good, beautiful spirits that show up at the cemeteries. But why wouldn't they? Think of it from this perspective. You've got a grandmother who's buried in that cemetery, or there's at least one grandma, that's in the cemetery, and you're walking around and they're thinking, oh dear, you shouldn't be out here doing that. That's mischief making. You should go home. So they go to the cemetery and they go, come on, go. And all of a sudden we think they've risen from the dead out here. And but really they just came to caretake you to get you back home. So
This
yes.
just popped in real fast because I know that we've talked about it a little bit before. And there's some activity in your bloodline again with this topic lately we discussed. Haunting,
Oh yes.
all that stuff. But then there is a difference between something that would be akin to a haunting and that protective element like a skinwalker.
Yes, absolutely. Firm believer in that. I've seen it.
Yeah.
There. And again, people will have a very definitive response to certain terms that we use, Wendigo, skinwalkers, because they have read all there is to read, and everything about them is just horrible, demonic, dangerous, flesh eating, blah 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 blah. But the reality is there are things that are pretty doggone scary out there that actually can be pretty doggone protective.
Mm-hmm.
And skinwalkers on properties, because we have a lot of Native American property back where I used to live. And when you respect a property and you don't do things that are just what's the word for it, disrespectful to the property, you can actually build a bit of a relationship. It's not going to be like inviting them over for dinner,
Mm-hmm.
but a protective yet respectful relationship with the land dwellers, whomever is still in the land, whether it's the Native American energy that's still there and in spirit, or whether it's another form of them as a skinwalker. We know that we have, and in this instance, and there'll be people that'll think it sounds crazy, there's skinwalkers that are very protective on this property. Now, I'm not going to go and give them a high five, and I'm not going to go and act like I know it all there, and I'm certainly not going to stare them down. There's a level of respect, but we can coexist
Mm-hmm.
with these energies, because not just because they look scary doesn't mean that they're all that bad.
Well, a lot of it has to do with the intention of their creation.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And if it was protective, they're not there to protect you.
No.
That you weren't even around. You were 18 generations not born when they were created.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean that they still had an original purpose, and it's not malignant.
No. It's funny because I've always had this saying, and I don't say it as much with clients because I don't want to scare clients away. But I truly believe it. Sometimes you have to be worse than the worst to be able to eradicate bad stuff. Now, what the worst of the worst doesn't mean you have to live and breathe and be that all the time. But it's just like anything else. If you're going to go fight something for whatever reason you feel necessary, you better at least know what they're up to. And you better at least be able to have the tactics and the techniques that are worse than they are.
Yeah, and you can't send the milkman. Like
you can't send the milkman.
You can't send
I love that.
The white robed, monk who has never seen blood and is like, they are protectors and healers, but they're not the ones who are going to go to that front line and deal with these kind of ancient things, these things that can't go anywhere. They just do what they do here.
Right. It would be very foolish to do that. So again, just because they look horrendous according to all the pictures we've seen, well, heck, in that same breath, no one wants to hear this. But I actually said it last night to someone, not last night, but yesterday afternoon when I was working. If we really knew even what our wonderful, beautiful archangels look like, we probably wouldn't sleep at night.
Mm-hmm.
They are depicted as being, they're angelic and they're beautiful with flowing blonde and blue eyes, and my gosh, they're just so amazing. And but you know what? Something tells me that that's for our eyes only.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, if they dominate the way that they sometimes do, we gotta figure
Yeah.
out. I bet that's not the most innocent
It
existence.
couldn't be. It couldn't
No,
really be that. It couldn't
no.
possibly be that. And it goes to the same the mindset and ideology of like gargoyles. I know we've mentioned them briefly in the past, but a gargoyle, we look at them and we don't want to take them home and make them our new puppy, right? I mean, they don't look like they're all that friendly, and they're a little scary. And a gargoyle is a gargoyle, so it's got a reputation. But if you look and see where most gargoyles are, they're protecting churches. They're protecting big buildings that house people. They are a protective energy.
Mm-hmm.
So if we put little cute kittens up there
Mm-mm.
instead with little bow ties, I just don't think they'd have the same effect.
There has been a phenomenon that's sort of been large in the UFOlogy world, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm curious if you have a feeling about this at all. But they're calling them like jellyfish entities, and they are basically large. They seem to be kind of in the air, in the sky regions, and
Uh-huh.
they're seen using certain electromagnetic, radars, and people don't know what to do about it. They look like they are not mechanical. I don't know.
It's really curious you've said that, because I have, and again, and I have not had a clear head enough to think and try to sort through that yet. I've actually seen something like that a couple times now over the last month. Yes,
No.
I've seen one outside, and I actually saw one inside,
Where?
and they look like a jellyfish. And when I see them, it's a big, you can see the tentacles. It looks
Tendrils.
like the tendrils, not tentacles. The tendrils, and they look like a huge jellyfish. And I have never seen those before. And I saw one out of doors in the sky, and I saw one actually in a building. And I thought, I'll be darned, when I get a little more rest and I get my car back, I'm going to do something about that. I'm going to figure that out more. So I hadn't really even researched it or heard much about it. So you're bringing something really, really cool to me, that's I needed feedback on. Didn't know that you knew.
Well, that's bizarre. And when you say inside, not your home, surely.
No, no, inside in a different location.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
One that I spent a lot of time in.
Yeah, and then so, gosh, man, that's so not good. My understanding of these is not great. That is not great. That is not good. That they are, intuitively just now I felt very strongly they are it's like a harvesting agent
Could be.
because they're
Very could
seeing
be.
them around chaos, destruction, active combat, and but there's not been any report. It's so funny because I'm trying to remember everything and not say something that is not true, because even my connection to this is very passive. But yeah, I mean, now because of the way our cameras are, they're getting seen, or
They're
something's
getting
happening
seen.
where the veil is becoming
Uh-huh.
sensitive. But
Yep.
that's weird. And so
Yep.
does it seem like it has a sentience about it?
Yes and no. I'm gonna have to think a little bit more about that one.
Mm-hmm.
I actually, curiously, I saw one last night.
Lights
Yes.
inside.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh boy. Oh boy.
Yes.
Oh boy.
So I've seen them twice now, and I'm really curious. It's one of those things that you look at, you like, seriously, now what? What is that? What am I doing with
Mm-hmm.
this? Okay, what does that mean? Okay, and then you're thinking, you know what? I don't have the strength and the energy right now to process that. So when I do, I will process it better.
Well,
But yeah. Mhm.
and a larger issue. The other thing is that now I'm starting to think about, that's so wild, because um, as these videos kind of that this is a newer phenomenon, but the
Mhm.
problem is when these videos go out, it just draws eyeballs and attention, which just strengthens that.
Yes, it does.
It holds space for
Yes.
those energies.
Yes, it
So
does.
you're just I'm sure that's not great.
No. And again, we're not trying to scare the audience and the viewers, but the realism is there are a lot of things that are part of our world. I mean, there are a tremendous amount of energy that we if we see a lot, and I know there's a lot that we don't see. So we can only imagine how much more there is.
I couldn't sleep yesterday, and so I went on a bike ride pretty early, just all the lit regions because I live on this very well lit area. But I took a break and I sat down by these ducks because I just wanted to, and I always love looking
Mm-hmm.
at them. It seemed as though that, like, those sparklers that are on top of birthday cakes.
Yep.
Imagine if a spark off of one of those sparklers fell and just fell down in front of me, and then it was gone. And I didn't feel anything about it. I didn't feel like it was negative. But I had told you when I was at your house that I felt like I was starting to have a little bit of a stronger relationship with the visual aspect. More often than not,
Yes.
I'm just wrong with what I see. But I can't imagine that being anything but what I just described. Because that's what it looked like. And there was nothing else around. Like, there was no. So I was just like, well, I don't know what that was. And I moved on with my bike ride and didn't think about it again until this moment. But it's weird because it's either, again, the veil maybe, or me, or activity, energy.
Activity and energy. And some of what we're seeing now is a bit more remote and a bit more under studied.
Mm-hmm.
And so there is more coming. And so we've got to, again, there isn't, please don't go out there and start, building bunkers to go
No.
hide underground. It's just simply energy's energy. We just have to figure out all the new energy, what it's there for. And it's just like anything else. I mean, look, every day of the week we see something new something new's coming out. I mean, heck, we've got electric cars now.
Yeah.
Who knows? Next year it'll be flying cars. So, I mean, we've got technology and change all around us, wrapped up in our personas. So we recognize that change is change with the spirit world as well, and we're more apt as we start, chipping away more and more the veil. We're going to start seeing more and more that we don't really know yet. With what in who or what they are, we don't know.
And furthermore, just to sort of curtail a lot of the anxiety about that topic, they talk about in the Vedas that the yugas, the changing of cycles, and that there are just cycles that are much more spiritually active and cycles that are very spiritually stunted. That's built into our system of existence. So if we're just because we're young, so we're mortal young souls. So for us, this heightened state of spiritual activity seems possibly weird or threatening or new or just different. But we also have to recognize this has always been accounted for. It just seems that it's kind of these ages, these long periods of time that we trend towards sensitivity, we trend out of it. We're trending into it right now. I think we can all recognize that.
And that makes a lot of sense. Again, we've covered so much ground.
I know. Look at us.
Oh my gosh!
What a great conversation.
What a wonderful, twists and turns all around this beautiful month of October. October is one of my favorite months. I love October. I love the little bits. We go from at least 95 degrees to 85. So we've got this real fall crisp weather going on right now.
We do.
And I know at least we keep trolling ourselves, right? And it's just about a lot of just intrigue and mystery and fall flavors and scents. And it's meant to be fun. It's meant to be embraced and enjoyed and embellished. Just don't get yourself in situations. Oftentimes people do. They get pushed into things that just aren't healthy. And don't be the person digging symbols out of Goatman's Bridge in Louisville, Texas. Halloween. Come on, use some good judgment. And plus nobody wants to look at them anyway. So yeah, everyone seems to do that. They start becoming this ritualistic energy, and all of a sudden now something else has been carved out, and we're like, oh dear God, here we go again. Just enjoy it. Make things lively, but remember, October 31st is a 24-hour period. You have to survive past that.
Oh, that's such a good point. Well, it looks like we have done it. I love you so much.
We've done it. Let me, if I may, my dear, let me just, because people, I keep talking about this 30-day car project. I just really just real quick, for those of you that I've heard a lot of people with the same situation right now, so I side with you. My car has been at the Reliable Chevrolet for 30 days as of Wednesday. It's the third time since August that they've had it. And the first time they had it for almost 2 weeks, and the second time they had it for almost a little over a week. And so, as you can imagine, if you add up three segments of time, I haven't had my car for a couple months. And so, I'm frustrated. So, if you are in the market for a new mechanic, you might want to be a little bit aware. Look at your reviews. I wish I would have. That some of the people that you may be doing business with may have a pretty solid reputation of being less than. I say that freely because all of what I'm saying is true, so it's not slander. So just be mindful. That's where you hear me complaining. So if y'all want to put in a good word for me, go do a ritual or something fun for me. Just kidding.
Let's get that car back. No.
Get that car back.
A jellyfish just comes and drops your car off. You're like, I don't know what this means. But thank you. Thanks.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you can take it back with you now. But anyway, so that's what you hear me grumbling about. So it's all good. Yes, we've done it. Oh my gosh, another wonderful opportunity to visit with one of my most dearest people.
I love you so much.
You always are remarkable. You're so intelligent. She's the PhD, and I'm the OCD. Let's put it that.
No, but we do good work, and we have necessary conversations, and I think the feedback we get even from clients lately has been so profound. So
I'm very grateful.
We're going to keep doing
it. I'm very grateful. We are. We're human, just like you all. We have the same dilemmas, the same concerns, the same reactions, same fears. Sometimes, we've got a difficult time on our calendar coming up. All I can say to all you lovely souls: stay strong. Love your family. Love you. Just stay strong. Meet new people. Be kind to them. Find your joy in sometimes in ways that there may be not really a lot of joy. So forge your way. You've got this.
Yay, we do.
Yay!
We don't have another choice but to have it, frankly.
No, we don't.
The other option is just not acceptable.
Right. If I could give you one wish, I wish you all would have candy and ice cream every day of the week and not have it affect your health or anything else.
Well, I love you, Miss Terri. I will see you next week, and we'll be back at it again.
I know. Isn't that exciting? We've got another opportunity to talk with each other and to talk to you.
I love you so much.
Love you too.
We'll see you next time.
See you next time.
And if you want to contact us, if you want to book a reading, all that information will be in the below region. Then we love to hear what your questions are, especially about topics that are so controversial, like pretty much everything we've talked about today.
Everything we talked about.
Everything we talked about today, everyone's got big opinions on. We'd love to hear them.
And let me also throw this out. If you're the one that sent me all the links to the dating sites on my business email, shame on you. Shame on you. Yeah, I got hacked. And so I'm getting all these dating sites. And, I told my husband, I said, I may be married, but I do got options.
Yeah. So don't forget.
Don't forget. Yeah, I was hacked. But anyway, it's all good.
Well, we will talk soon. I love you. I love you. I love you.
Love you. Love you. Love you.
Bye.
Bye.